Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. My name is Lynette. Today we have a special guest, the author of Beuilt To Last by David Amerland. And although I do get contacted from time to time with people wanting to be guests on the show, however, I usually decline because it's not typically in line with what we're talking about. But David's words and David's book seems to resonate with what we've been talking about, and that is your body and mind both need to be physically fit. I'm going to let him explain that to you in a little more detail. Hello, David, and welcome to the show.
Lynette, hi, and thank you very much for having me here. I'm actually delighted to join you, and I can't wait to see where the conversation will go.
Tell us a little bit about your book. I see that you wrote the book Beuilt To Last, and it seems, from what I've read, it incorporates building not only your body, but your mind as well. And that's something that we've talked about a lot on this podcast. So could you tell us a little more details?
Absolutely, and thank you very much for starting out like this. Well, essentially, this is a little bit unusual in terms of fitness books. It's not very prescriptive in terms of what to do. It doesn't tell you should do this or you should do that, but it does break down the reason why fitness is so difficult to achieve. And it helps the reader understand their own operating system a little bit better, understand what they need to do in order to customize everything that they want to do and make it fit in their life. And then it gives them a very almost unique sort of connection explanation between the connection of the brain and the body and how the two can work better together so that not only do we get fitter physically, but also improve our mental health, improve our mental capabilities, improve our mood and our internal well-being, and learn how to manage those because we constantly change from day to day, month to month, year to year, so that it becomes a kind of lifelong mission. And the book is complete. It has 84 different workouts. They're customizable. They are varied in their difficulty. Some of, you can do some for 15, 20 minutes if you have that kind of time. There are some which you can do in a couple of minutes. Some are purely for the brain and they actually help you, improve your concentration, improve your breathing, which joins the mind-body connection through the parasympathetic nervous system. So it's pretty complete, but it's also, from my perspective, I think, what I wanted to be. I wanted to be the first step in a journey that will last and evolve, and the person who does it will evolve, and their horizons will broaden, and they'll become better and better.
I didn't get to the part about exercising the brain yet, but I'm very excited about that. It sounds like it would line up neurologically. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, everything that we do, absolutely everything, including this conversation, there's a physical aspect to it. Our body is functioning, our heartbeat is, going up and down, whether we are aroused sort of physically by something that we have heard or sensed. And at the same time, there's a strong cognitive component. Our brain is analyzing sound waves in this particular case and images. If we're looking at the screen and we're getting information and it's processing that, and we are beginning to sort of put together a detailed image in our head of what the context of this is. And also there's a strong emotional component. How we feel, how sort of past do we carry with us? What sort of experiences have we had? What sort of trauma or insecurities? All those things come together, which is what makes people, I suppose, so complex and so difficult to understand most of the time. And the book itself is a manual in that regard. It helps us understand all these layers at a fairly granular detail without going into too much science. Obviously, it's science-based, and I'm bringing a lot of the theory there. But at the same time, it's something which is easy for the reader to absorb so they can actually internalize it.
I'm excited, especially to read about the brain. I understand that there is a connection between the stomach and the brain. And I know when I eat better, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but I know when I eat better, my brain operates better, and so does my body.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought it up. Actually, there is, yeah. And there's a massive amount of science in this. Our body is comprised of 30 trillion cells, give or take. And our microbiome, the bacterial cultures that exist in our gut, which help us break down and digest the food that we consume so that we can absorb the nutrients, is equal in number. So we have 30 trillion bacterial organisms in our gut. Now, the consistency, the type of cultures that exist in the gut are absolutely key. And it's unique from individual to individual. And some of it is inherited. Well, most of it is inherited, but obviously some is developed as through lifestyle and dietary habits. And obviously, whether we exercise or not, which also helps develop specific cultures through the hormonal profiles that this actually helps develop. So when you consume something, as you say, depending on what you've actually eaten, what goes on inside our gut is that that food that we have consumed, as it becomes processed, helps or hinders the development of particular cultures. And those cultures, in turn, produce particular hormones. And those hormones then become part of the communication of the gut-brain axis, which affects cognition, affects mood, affects predisposition to certain things because it also impacts the immune system. It can even increase our anxiety. If we eat something which upsets our stomach, we can actually feel anxiety for no reason. We can feel panic for no reason. We can exhibit symptoms of neuroticism. So all these things are linked. We are one thing. We used to think that the brain and the body were distinct and separate. We used to treat them like that. And these days, we know that essentially they're the same thing. The brain is present throughout the body, through the neural connections and the central nervous system. At the same time, the stomach has 300,000 neurons. So it's like a mini brain. So a certain amount of information processing is happening there. And the heart also has approximately between 150,000 to 200,000 neurons. So there's also some kind of information processing going in the heart. So those three centers, the gut, the heart, and the brain, they're like three separate brains which are intertwined.
Wow, that's really amazing. To me, it's so interesting to learn about this because my listeners know I'm struggling with a neurological mobility problem. And it started when I was in litigation for 9 years, and the stress was too much. And one day my whole body just started convulsing and I went down from there. So I've since just got a release basically that I have no disease. So I just started exercising. So that's why I'm so excited about your book to add brain exercises to my physical exercises.
Absolutely. And your experience is an example in itself. Every time something happens to us physically, we get stressed, we get anxious, we get hurt, whatever it is, it impacts our neurological system, which means it impacts our brain, and then it impacts our mind, it impacts our mood, our psychology. So those three things, those layers, the brain, the mind, and the body are essentially one. We live in one shell. And it's very difficult to say, oh, these are all three separate things, because it isn't. They are highly intertwined and interdependent, and each affects the other. And to get to your particular example, you're absolutely right. First of all, congratulations, because you're taking responsibility for your own health and your own return to health. And exercise is an intervention sort of a method. By moving our body gradually, we can begin to bring our brain and mind back to that sort of a stable baseline from which we can begin to function again.
Definitely. I'm just going to throw this out there. I don't know if I'm accurate or not, but by reading your book, I kind of sense that you're a spiritual person. And I could be wrong, could be right, but if I am correct, where does spirituality come together with this mind and body?
Okay, I'm highly scientific, however, and your perception is correct. Almost nobody in science can work with what they've got, see what they see, and not feel a sense of awe at the entire edifice that is the universe, the world, us. We're a mystery upon everything. We bear in mind with all the knowledge that we have, we are nowhere near to even beginning to define what consciousness is, and we have really no hard definition of what life is. We're the same electrons and neutrons that make up the universe, and a rock is made up of the same essential building blocks. And we don't know how the transition happens from something which is seemingly inanimate to something which is us, which then has this subjective experience, which we call consciousness, which reaches out and feels a sense of awe at the world around us. And that is the basis of spiritualism. And I think most people actually feel that, even if they don't acknowledge it.
My feeling is it takes all, to me anyway, coming together, mind, body, and spirit. And it's getting them all in line, which takes a lot of discipline. Just eating correctly in itself is a challenge for me.
It's a challenge for everybody. That's why so few of us actually do it correctly. One of the things which I say, because we use words like discipline and willpower and motivation, and of those three words, only one actually has any kind of concrete meaning. Motivation is a neurochemical state in the brain where certain neurotransmitters accumulate. They create a particular electric charge in certain centers of that brain, and the neurons then, the actions of those neurons fire and we take action. So motivation, strictly speaking, is always the actions we are undertaking or are willing to undertake to move from a position where we don't feel so good about something to a position where we actually feel better about it. So when we talk about willpower now, willpower is basically the willingness to do something and continue to do it. And discipline is the ability to do that thing consistently. So there's an element of judgment when these words are bandied about, which I object to, because essentially willpower is a process. That's all it is. If we have a process in place that enables us to do what we want to do, that's willpower. So if I'm to exercise, for instance, and I don't know how to do that, I don't know how to start, I don't know what to do, my motivation is there, but because I can't do it, it doesn't mean I lack willpower. I just like the process. If the process is there, I will do it. And if I then have structure, which allows me to do it day after day, maybe I do it with a friend, maybe I do it in such a way that it fits in my day and I have sort of book-ended a certain amount of time to actually do it in. Well, that structure is discipline. So when we talk about motivation, motivation is dopamine. Willpower is process. Discipline is structure, what we actually put in place to help us. And the reward on that is serotonin, which makes us feel good.
Well, I have learned that if I think about a reward after this interview, for example, I said to myself, I'm going to have a cup of coffee. I'm trying not to have coffee, but I thought I'm going to have a cup of coffee after this interview. So that's my reward. And it kind of stimulates me a little bit. But at the same time, I know what you mean about motivation. I was in physical therapy last week and I just didn't feel like doing it. I really did not. And I kept telling myself, stay motivated, stay motivated. And it did help by telling myself that.
Yes, and that self-talk is exactly one of the aspects I talk about in the book. If we have a cheerleader with us all day, telling us, oh, you can do this, this is amazing, just go for it. We'll find ourselves doing so many amazing things all the time because they're sort of giving us good vibes and they're pushing us forward and they're helping us do things. And we're responding to that. And we don't have that, right? We're just us. And what do we have? What we all have is that negative voice in our head that tells us, oh, you're not good enough, you're too tired, you're too busy, life is complex, you don't understand this. All the negative things we listen to. It's really important then to actually have that cheerleader in our head, to be our own cheerleaders, to be able to say, you've got this, you can do this, be confident about this. And also use that perspective to quantify the moments when we don't succeed as much as we want to. Those are learning moments. we actually learn from them and will only become better. So it's important to be able to see them as such.
Hey, I'm just curious, what inspired you to write this book?
Okay, that's a great question because he has an amazing answer. Every book has an origin story, right? And I never intended to write a book on fitness because fitness has for me been such a long part of my life to such a high level that I kind of understand it at a very deep level. And every time somebody asks me, how do I get fit? I say, I couldn't tell them because, what works for me wouldn't work for them. And there's no one size fits all. So I have a home gym, which I acquired after the pandemic because I needed to work out and I couldn't go out because of the lockdowns. And I have a friend who's a close friend, and he also has a home gym. And once a week, we get together and we train together. And we sort of push each other a little bit harder. We do something more complicated, and we talk. It's a social thing as well. And he used to come and discuss some article he saw, some misconception he heard, and we discuss it at depth. And then I'd bring in studies and we'll talk about this. And out of those conversations over a period of 2 years, well, there's the spark for Beuilt To Last.
So you kind of put it together as you went on
Yeah.
meeting with your friend. Everything starts somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So this book, Beuilt To Last, is personally, I've never seen a book like this before that incorporates the mind and the body. I mean, there's probably some out there. I just haven't come across it. So what makes this book different?
It's different because it's not tell you do this or do that and achieve this. It helps you understand how you operate, what's the operating system that runs each person, what works for you predominantly. And then it helps guide you to things which will actually fit into your life. It's a fact. I can put together a training program and give it to anybody. And they might do it for a day, maybe a week, and then they'll stop. And they'll stop because it's not necessarily a good fit for them. So they find it difficult. It might be too complex. And certainly if they don't kind of feel it, it's something that's been given to them. But the book itself helps people do the opposite. It helps them develop their own structure, their own approach to fitness, find their own reasons for doing it. And by doing that, they make it their own. Suddenly they understand how they operate. Suddenly they understand that this can be both sustaining, so it's good for us, but also sustainable, so they can do it for a long period of time.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about longevity because I know your book talks about longevity fitness. I assume fitness is something that we need to do probably the rest of our lives, correct? They say move it or lose it.
And they're right. But let's examine where this comes from and let's see the logic behind it. If we go back 10,000 years ago, when we lived in Paleolithic age, we every day would have to walk some distance, we'll have to kind of climb somewhere, we'll have to dig for something, we'll have to lift heavy things, we'll have to do all those things. And what we call exercise today, back then was just living. That's what you had to do to survive each day.
Correct.
We know from the anthropologists who have been embedded in the few hunter-gatherer societies that exist today, which are cut off from civilization. And they're the closest we'll get to that Paleolithic age. And we know that that's their life. They are active every day. They do all those things as part of their life. And when they don't have to do those things, what do? Nothing. They just sit around. They don't do absolutely anything because that's how they conserve energy for survival. So when it comes to today, we think, oh, we need to exercise. Do we need to exercise every day? Well, yes, because our body has actually been made to do all those things every day. Why do we find it difficult? We find it difficult for many reasons. Sometimes we don't understand ourselves why we want to exercise. What does it mean for us? And we try to receive something from the external world that will tell us that. Some kind of message from fitness industry or films or the society, the community around us. But really, it has to come from us. Sometimes we find it difficult to exercise because we don't know what to do. At other times, we don't. We feel that reticence at the back of our mind tells us, this is going to be difficult because exercise is a stressor. And we, like the hunter-gatherer societies we just talked about, those tribes, we are programmed to avoid stressors. When we don't have to do anything, we do nothing,
Right.
and that's perfectly fine. So all those reasons have to be taken into account when we try to find a pathway that will enable us to do something every day. And this is what I say when it comes to it. We need to make it personal. It has to have personal meaning for us. We need to make it possible. So we need to create the structure around us and the process that will enable us to do it without too much effort. And then we have to make it persistent. We have to make it to create in such a way that it becomes easy to do day in and day out without, again, going into much effort. If we have to travel a long way to go to the gym and the weather's bad, traffic is bad, we may not find parking, these are all obstacles, and we need to be able to understand that and find another solution. So these are the three things which we need in order to find a solution that sticks. We make it personal, we make it possible, we make it persistent.
Did you find that by having the gym in your home that you tend to exercise a bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is highly intentional on my part. I not only do I have a gym, because I mean, realistically, I mean, I'm so experienced at exercise. I've been doing it all my life. I competed at a high level in martial arts for 10 years. So I'm a certified Taekwondo instructor. So I can actually put together a training program for myself without any equipment, without a lot of space, and train anywhere. But in order to do that, at the end of the day, when I'm tired, I have to think hard, and that's an extra load, and I don't want to do it. So because I realize that, what I do is I go into a fully equipped gym where I have all the equipment, all the treadmills, all the elliptical, I have a rowing machine, punch bag, the works. And what that equipment does, it gives me avenues of ease. So on the worst possible day, when I don't feel like doing anything, when my brain is stuck because I've been stressed and I've been dealing with difficult things, when I don't feel like creating any kind of program for myself, I'll get on the treadmill, I'll put on my tablet, and I'll walk for 2 hours. So I'll get quite a bit of exercise in as easy way as possible. So, there you go. I created that by design.
Exercise, it is funny in that way because I personally would put it off. I think of every excuse. And then when I would force myself and actually do it, afterwards, I felt so much better. It's one of those things that, yes, like you said, is getting your head in the right frame of mind.
Yes, I have a nifty trick, which I'll give you now, because you say, like you, I feel the same reticence, and I'm really good at coming up with logical excuses for not to do something. I can say to myself, oh, I'll work out twice as hard the next day. It never happens. Or, I have so much work, missing one day doesn't matter, which is true. Missing one day doesn't matter, but missing one day for no particularly good reason actually does matter. So I let myself do that. So this is what I do. I make a deal with myself. I tell myself, I'm going to go and exercise for 10 minutes on the clock. I put on a stopwatch on my watch and I go and exercise for 10 minutes. If my mood hasn't changed in 10 minutes, that's it. I pack up, grab a shower, go to bed. And this is what happens. Because I exercise in 10 minutes, within the 8 to 10 minute window, my body temperature goes up, my muscles relax, my serotonin is flowing through my system, so I'm feeling good. And I'm inclined then to exercise for another hour. So, and that always happens. And there's a scientific reason for that, which has been discovered. Carrying out experiments in neuroscience discovered that if muscles work in that 8 to 10 minute window sustainably, then they produce a particular hormone which activates the reward system in the brain. So dopamine is secreted, and that increases our motivation to keep on doing whatever we're doing.
That makes sense. That's kind of what I do without thinking about it as a good trick, not a trick, but kind of a trick to play on yourself. Because when I wake up in the morning, I say, oh, I don't feel like doing exercises. And then I do a little bit. Next thing you know, I'm rolling into the next one and the next one. So this book, Built to Last, is it for beginners as well as advanced? If you are just starting an exercise routine, would this apply?
It does, yes. There are 84 different workouts. Each workout has different levels, so you can actually customize it to your level. You can do it level 1, level 2, level 3. And not only does that change the level of difficulty, but also it changes the time. So it makes it very accessible. And you can always pick workouts that appeal to you first. So you find one that actually fits in with what you're doing or what you want to do, and it sort of start from there. They've all been field tested for accessibility with different sort of fitness groups and different levels of fitness, different age groups, different sort of capabilities, so that they actually fit in with most people. So it's designed for anybody, really.
It talks a lot about, I think I'm saying this correctly, Darby, correct?
Derby, that's right, Derby.
Derby. I'm not familiar with that word. Could you explain that a little more?
Yeah, Derby is it's a fitness website. It's a fitness resource. It's a global fitness resource. It's at derby.com. It's staffed by volunteers. I'm one of the fitness advisors there. And it is crowd funded, so it's entirely free to access. It has over 2,500 workouts, which we can actually pick from. It has, I think, 150 programs right now. It has fitness guides. It's got all these different resources, and it's there to help you get fit at your level and at your pace. So you just pick something. Every day something comes out. Some workouts are very, very short, like a couple of minutes. There's a daily challenge, which is only a minute or so. You do that. And if that's all you want to do, that's fine. No problem. There's a workout of the day, tons of material.
Okay, great. Well, David, is there anything else you want us to know about this book?
Yeah, I understand fitness is hard for everybody. No exceptions. Even people who do it to a very high level have to find a way to motivate themselves. And then they have to find a way to maintain their focus and their discipline, their willpower, by creating that process and that structure, which we mentioned before. So the book itself is a massive help. It actually helps you create something which will help keep you healthy as you age, so that you don't suffer from serious diseases, you have full control of your body, and actually get to enjoy life. And that's what makes us happy.
Right. One thing I just learned, and I didn't realize this, is a lot of, I would imagine women more than men suffer from osteoporosis. And
Yes,
I didn't realize that exercise, I thought it was just taking calcium that was the antidote for that. But I didn't realize the part that exercise plays in that as well.
absolutely. As a matter of fact, there were studies on that, and I'm very glad you brought it up. I'll explain a couple of things now. There were studies that showed that just taking calcium on its own is not sufficient to stave off the process. Bones are living organisms. They respond to specific needs. So in order for the calcium to be absorbed and the bones to get stronger, they need to experience the kind of stress that happens by working the muscles. And that's one of the ways that actually we can reverse or mitigate, in the worst case, the effects of osteoporosis. Now, on that subject, and particularly with women, there was a study carried out by Harvard University in 2007. They were looking at the connection between osteoporosis and hip breaks after a fall and health outcomes. And they found something which was surprising to them. They found a high level of correlation between a hip break after a fall due to osteoporosis and a decline in cognitive function within a 6-month window. So it was surprising for them, and they went looking, and this is what they discovered. You carried out extra tests, and they carried out more research, and they discovered that if muscles work, bones get stronger, and strong, healthy bones produce a particular type of hormone, which helps strengthen the calcium ion channels in the brain, which are used for communication between different brain centers. So something as simple as exercise, which strengthens our bones, actually strengthens our brain. It makes sure that we're cognitively sharp. we don't decline, we don't suffer from early onset of dementia or Alzheimer's. So these are important considerations to take into account as we age.
On this particular podcast, we talk about the whole package, the mind, the body, and of course, the spirit as well. But in this case, mostly focusing on the mind and the body. So many people don't quite know where to start.
Yes, and that's in that case, this book, it gives them pretty much everything they need to go from zero to as far as they can possibly go.
Well, that's exciting. I think we're going to wind this up, but I want to thank you for being our guest, and I'm excited to finish reading your book, Beuilt To Last, and I will put the name of the book and your name as well, and any other contact information that you want to give me as a footnote on my podcast description.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.